Hi, and welcome to Sound Sustainability. I'm Nafisa Nazir.
And I'm Leah Horick, and we're eco-reps at Southwestern University.
We created this podcast to help make our campus more sustainable.
And our world, too.
So tune in every other Friday to hear what's happening in sustainability at SU, and to learn what you can do to live a sustainable life.
So many things, guys.
Thanks for listening.
And stay sustainable.
Good morning, Southwestern, and thank you for joining us today. Leah will not be with us today, so I'll be running it solo, which I'm kind of used to since I ran this podcast solo for the first season. On 31st, or tomorrow, will be Halloween, and what not better way to celebrate Halloween Eve and the last episode of our Halloween series with an episode dedicated to Halloween candy, or specifically chocolate candy, and its relation to sustainability. Today we are joined by Dr. Burks, a biology professor here at Southwestern University and also a chocolate educator at Prof. Romy. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Burks, and I have some questions for you.
My pleasure. Love to talk about chocolate.
Yeah. So when did you become interested in chocolate, and why did you create a course dedicated to it?
That's a good question that a lot of people ask. When I first taught a class in invertebrate biology in 2004, I used a book that talked about a lot of evolutionary relationships between organisms, and students were having a lot of trouble with that. And I ended up having this idea in the shower that you could mimic the idea of a species using American candy bars.
Really?
And so, yes, so American candy bars are literally plastic on the outside, right? And you have traits that are biologically what we call phenotypically plastic, i.e. they have different states. And so like if you buy your, candy bar in Halloween, it's orange and brown, right? Or black.
Yeah.
If you buy it at Christmas, it's, green and red. But the inside of it didn't change, right? It's still the same candy bar. And so the inside would represent sort of what we think of in biology as genetics. And so I developed this exercise about sort of thinking about the insides and outsides of chocolate in the idea of a species, but obviously chocolate doesn't reproduce on its own. It doesn't have genes. But then I went and I studied some other science for 6 weeks in Belgium.
Wow.
And their chocolate was everywhere. And not just candy chocolate, but fine chocolate. So we can talk about the difference there. And then I just got hooked and started reading, and then the opportunity came to teach a first-year seminar, and it's a perfect subject.
Wow, that's really cool. So like you were able to like tie in biology with like something as simple as chocolate.
Yeah, so I actually ended up writing up that exercise as a paper that was published in the American Biology Teacher.
Wow, that's awesome.
Best shower idea ever.
Could you tell us more about chocolate? Besides that it's something that we all like to eat, hopefully. So like, could you talk about like the origins or history of chocolate, maybe?
How long do you have? So how about some main things that people may or may not know? And so one is that chocolate comes from a plant. It's a tree, Theobroma cacao. It literally means food of the gods, but historically, the flavor of chocolate or the use of that bean was in drinks until the 1700s.
Wow.
Mid 1600s. And what we often consume, particularly at Halloween, is something I would call candy.
Yeah.
And not chocolate, because the first ingredient in candy is sugar.
Right.
And the first ingredient in what I consider sort of real chocolate, or might people say dark or even semi-dark, would be where the cocoa mass is the first ingredient. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in in chocolate. That takes out a lot of milk chocolates. But still, if you compare your average commercial amount of chocolate, which is about 11%, to a good milk chocolate bar, it should be like triple that amount, 30 to 40% in a good milk chocolate. All chocolate is fermented, so it's grown equatorially between about 0 and 20 degrees north and south. It has been harvested. There's multiple harvests per year. And then it is fermented along with all of the pulp that comes from the pod, which is the actual fruit. And then it gets dried. And then some people make it what we call at origin. So at origin is where it's grown. So some people will make chocolate at origin. There's a few companies, but most of those beans are shipped out to the North, United States, Europe, where they are then made into some sort of chocolate product.
Interesting. So it mostly like comes like from foreign countries.
Yeah, so the only state in the United States that can grow chocolate successfully is Hawaii. And there's Hawaiian chocolate is highly prized, and there's just not a lot of it.
Right.
So even the people that make chocolate from trees in Hawaii, they still import beans from everywhere else. Or your mass market beans, the ones that make up your candy chocolate, largely come from the Ivory Coast. About 60 to 70% of it is West African. The remaining 20-25% is most likely from Indonesia.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. So how much would you say that chocolate matters, like on a societal scale, economically or socially? How much does it contribute to like our societal customs or like our overall worldwide GDP?
Yeah, so I think it's huge. I mean, the U.S. industry is over 20 billion.
Wow.
There are 40 to 50 million people that somehow are connected to the chocolate industry for their income. About 10% of those are small farmers, because most of chocolate is harvested by from small plots of land in West Africa.
Right.
It is, apparent in many cultures. We use it to symbolize a lot of things.
Yes.
It has an interesting language associated with it. And then most recently, probably in the last 20, 25 years, people are looking at the health effects of chocolate. And by saying that, it's really the dark cocoa mass that gives you the good chemicals that may be brain friendly, heart healthy, memory enhancing, all of those things that come along with what chocolate can do. So I have not found a discipline that I cannot connect it to. And, I think it plays a bigger role than most people think.
Yeah, I bet. So like, what would you say that real chocolate is? Is it just like 100% cacao?
No, I mean, yes, if you want to get down to, yes, it could be 100%. So I would define, true chocolate as having cocoa mass as the first ingredient.
Okay.
So that's going to be anything of 50% and higher. That's in my sort of estimation.
Yeah.
But some things will say dark chocolate on them, but the first ingredient will still be sugar.
Right.
That doesn't go. That's not right.
Yeah.
A lot of people will debate whether white chocolate is chocolate. It depends on your definition. You can define chocolate as any product made from, the beans or the pulp of Theobroma cacao. In that case, it is chocolate. It's made from the fats, right? And that has its own, good lubricating properties. They're, good fats. I tend not to think of white chocolate as chocolate. However, I tend to think it more of a confection because it's still, having that sugar.
Yeah.
And so for me, the nuance and the really interesting flavors that you get from chocolate, even beyond the chocolate flavor, come from usually dark chocolate.
Got it. Yeah, it's like really hard to like find chocolate that doesn't have sugar as its first ingredient. Like where would those be sold exactly?
Well, so it sort of depends on what you want to spend. They're now sold really in almost every grocery store. So there are, I would say, 3 or 4 mid-range expense. So having a bar of chocolate between sort of $2 and $5, right? And so there are probably 3 or 4 companies that are producing, quality, well-sourced, good chocolate. One is called Theo out of Seattle. Another one is called Taza. They're out of Somerville in Boston. Yeah. And Cho, TCHO, that's in Berkeley and San Francisco. And then a company called Divine, which is importing beans from a women's cooperative in Ghana. And their headquarters, I think, is in DC. So those, and then you can buy, sort of Central Market, Whole Foods labeled, 70% chocolate that has reasonably good flavor to it.
That's good. So since this is a sustainability podcast, we want to touch on the sustainability of chocolate. So how sustainable would you say is the current chocolate industry, like environmentally?
So there's really sort of a two-sided answer to the question. The mass market industry is not sustainable really at all. They're worried, so they have lots of things to worry about. Their trees are all genetically similar. So there are problems associated with that, particularly in the face of climate change. So particularly because they're getting most of their beans out of West Africa. And so trees that are more susceptible to drought obviously are not going to produce as well. The workforce also associated with mass market chocolate is also not sustainable. Many farmers are aging and their children don't want to be a cacao farmer because it doesn't pay a lot. They're going into the cities, for better jobs. So the backbone of the industry is really a concern, something that can certainly cripple the industry in the future years to come. And then they're not sustainable. I mean, obviously the companies themselves are sustainable. They're making billions of dollars. But they certainly don't have an economic sustainability plan that filters down to all of their partners, clients. On the flip side, what we would call the craft chocolate market, or sometimes called artisan or small bean to bar. Bean to bar is an odd term because all chocolate bars are bean to bar. Hershey is bean to bar. But the idea of small craft bean to bar is that they know where the beans came from and you're crafting your bar with care, right? And so where I get most of my chocolate is from these companies. And they are practicing lots of sustainable practices. Good. And in particular, working on transparency reports, understanding what it means to pay fair market or fair trade market value prices, they're interested in social justice. Both of the groups are involved. There's a Fine Cacao and Chocolate Institute, and then there's a Fine Chocolate Industry Association that has launched working groups to talk about social justice and sustainability. And then there's a particular company called Uncommon Cacao, and they're a intermediary, they're a bean supplier. And so all of their practices are transparent, sustainable, looking at, furthering the industry. So there's actually quite a lot of interest on the artisan craft side, and not enough investment on the corporate mass market side.
Yeah. So like, would you say that sustainable chocolate practices, they're becoming more common, like not just through creating new brands of like sustainable chocolate brands, but also our existing chocolate brands like trying to adopt those habits as well?
I would say so, yes, because even the big company mass marketers are looking at trends and looking at trends in the industry, and they're going, oh well, maybe I should think about that. Certainly on the mass market industry, they're pouring a ton of money into science.
Yeah.
So the flip side is we're learning a lot more about the genetics of the plant, and looking at selective breeding, and eventually probably genetically engineered cacao in the foreseeable future, largely to resist disease. So about a third of the cacao crop annually is lost to mostly fungus.
Oh, wow.
Pests, so looking at disease. So I think that they're, on the corporate side, their sustainability practices are to keep doing what they're doing, right? Yeah. Figuring out ways to sustain what they are doing. And on the craft chocolate side, their sustainability practices are really looking to change the industry, but you then have to convince people that you need to pay more than $1 for chocolate bar.
Yeah, definitely. So like when they're measuring their sustainability, what exactly do they look at? Like in regards to like maybe their supply chain or the amount of water they use, etc. How do they exactly measure?
Yeah, a lot of it is what they would call a farm gate price, what they're paying for bulk beans in comparison to market rates. Other aspects of sustainability is the likelihood of continued harvest, right? So are they, buying from one-off suppliers or creating sustaining farming relationships? And they'll purchase all of these metrics under transparency reports.
Yeah.
And then there's one company called RAAKA, RAAKA in New York, and on the back side of their labels are all of their sustainability practices.
Oh, wow. That's good.
It's a really cool label.
Yeah. So like for our viewers out there, do you mind just like giving like a list of like maybe 5 to 10 chocolate brands that we should start incorporating?
Yeah, it's hard. They're all, how do I pick? So when I first started teaching, there were like 5, and now like 5 bean to bar makers, and now there's over 500 globally, about 200 in the US. There's a lot. But in terms of ones that have a particularly, central view of sustainability, I would say French Broad Chocolate, which is in Asheville, North Carolina. So both of the owners there are involved in these different initiatives. I just sat on a panel about B Corp, being a B Corp company, and so they are a B Corp company. So French Broad Chocolates, I would put up there in the list of Sustainable. Goodnow Farms is another one that's buying a lot of heirloom beans. So ones that have been noted for their genetic diversity. So Goodnell Farms is another one that is also husband and wife owned. And then let's see what else. Castronovo in Florida. They harvest very sustainably out of Colombia, primarily is where they're pulling most of their beans. Ritual, which is out of Park City, Utah. God, I'm trying to think what's in my stash. All sorts of, and then a couple in Manoa chocolate in Hawaii, and also Madre chocolate. And all of the Hawaiian bean to bar chocolatiers are very interested, or bean to bar chocolate makers and chocolatiers are really interested in sustainability, particularly on the forestry side and replanting and agroforestry. So that would be Lonahana, Manoa, and Madre are all Hawaiian chocolates that are chocolate makers that are fabulous. Fruition in New York. Here in Texas, Bob Williamson with Seriously Chocolate is interested in all things sustainable. His packaging is all sort of biodegradable. The outside packaging is very cool. It's SRSLY. And so he's a good maker. There's a lot.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I bet that would be very helpful for all the listeners who want to.
And if they want to try the best way to try a bunch of different makers is to order from Bar and Cocoa. So Bar and Cocoa is they buy from all the makers and then they can make packages. And so you can get a little bit of everything. Versus if you buy from one maker, you get all of their different bars, but it's one maker. So, I do both. But Bar and Cacao can give you a nice comparison. Dick Taylor's another really good chocolate maker with a pretty good price point.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that's all the questions I had about chocolate. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
So I hope that I will teach my Science of Chocolate course again next summer in May/June term. And we did it online last year, which was surprisingly very cool and worked well. Everybody got 64 samples of chocolate and we tasted 3 to 4 samples a day for 20 days. It was a good time.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any questions about chocolate, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, of course. I'll make sure to give a link to your email in the episode description. So just to finish off, here are some upcoming events. So on October 31st, Green Fund full proposals are due. So if you're interested in implementing a sustainability related project on campus, definitely get that proposal in. And then in November is World Vegan Month. So it's the perfect month to go vegan if you haven't already, or if you just want to give a few vegan meals a try, whatever you can do, it'll help. And then Tuesday, November 3rd is Election Day. So hopefully you voted and fulfilled your civil duty. Friday, November 6th is Texas Arbor Day. So be on the lookout for details about oak tree planting. So that is all I have. And thank you all for joining our 14th episode. And we will see you next time.